Hello and welcome to Switch Scheme. In today's video, I want to go over some of my favorite hidden gem RPGs that to me are a perfect 10 out of 10, regardless of what the mainstream reviewers might have you believe. Now we have a mix of first-person dungeon explorers and tactical combat RPGs to give you a range of games to look into if you want to try some of these out. As always, please drop a like and sub if you enjoy the content, and let me know which of these games you've played before, and what other hidden gems are in your library. The 100-Line Last Defense Academy is actually the sole game that drove me to make this list. I had never heard of this game, let alone played it, until I did a review of it a few weeks ago after I found it on the eShop, and I kinda just sat there and mulled over how much fun the game has really been. The game boasts gorgeous anime-styled graphics that make you feel like you're playing through an episode of your favorite show, and the characters are all well written and voice acted to perfection. And to top it all off, the gameplay is actually tactical. It has a lot to chew on in terms of depth and fun. You play as a group of characters who are recruited to help defend their school against ongoing attacks, and you must help protect the school for, you guessed it, 100 days, hence the name. The game boasts that it contains around 100 different endings, as every decision dictates the story down an ever-branching tree to its inevitable end, meaning that replayability is top-notch. The combat is a standard action point tactical turn-based system that provides depth, great animation, and enough to dig into to ensure your team operates as smoothly as possible. My personal favorite character to use has a passive that increases her damage output as she kills enemies, so you can have her focus on all the mobs while the rest of the team support her until she basically can dominate the boss in question. This is a game I am so glad I bought, and it's one of the few games I bought digitally because I can't find a physical online that isn't scalped to high end. Great news for the future of the series, and I hope we do happen to see more, because this is one of those games that really truly deserves a little bit more spotlight.
Feels good to have all that power coursing through you, doesn't it? We call this Hemo Anima. Eliminate the threat to your town!
For the Gooners among us, let's talk about one of my first-person dungeon crawlers that I absolutely love, Morero Crystal H. To sum up this game in a TLDR format, let me give you the premise of the story. You play as Xenox as he bears witness to the most tragic of events. The villain has stolen the Dark Bra, and now, because the Dark Bra and the Light Panties are no longer together, which brings the world to balance, chaos begins. It's so stupid that you can't help but laugh, and thankfully the execution of the story is well done because the cast of characters you meet knows that this is not serious and plays off the concept and all the shenanigans at hand. What's truly surprising, other than the silliness of the story, is how deep the combat gets here. It's actually very deep for what you see on the surface, and honestly, if you're not bothered at all by the theme, and you really like dungeon crawlers, please give this game a try. There are many monster girls to save and tons of side content besides the dungeon crawling to mess with, including some very suggestive mini games used to, quote, save the girls from darkness. Now, if you're put off by the overt sexualized themes, I totally understand, and I have a different dungeon crawler on the list later, but if it doesn't bother you at all, this game is a surprising hit. The original Caligula Effect was a bad game, a truly uneventful experience that left so much to be desired. It really did work on paper, but in execution, it would leave a French revolutionary itching for more. I think that is why the sequel wasn't well received by such a wide audience, because when you eat a bad grape, you just assume the whole bunch is bad, but thankfully that's not how it worked out here. The Caligula Effect 2, say that 5 times fast, sees your character affected by a character named X, who basically awakens your abilities so you can save everyone from this alternate reality. The characters are interesting and a fun bunch to follow, but nothing on the scale of, say, Persona's cast. But that isn't to say, though, that they don't have complexity and depth, because they surely do. And exploring their stories main and side alike opens up more gameplay options, and is well worth it. The game is a turn-based RPG on a grid, something we have seen before, and it's a good experience. It feels to me like the Tale series, where you control one of your characters and the party is then controlled by AI, wherein you give it specific skill sets and commands to follow as the battle plays out. I know this style won't appeal to everyone. We generally enjoy controlling all of our characters, but honestly it does work here. If you were put off by the original's lackluster offerings, I would say give this one a try, and thankfully you don't have to have played the original to enjoy this hidden gem. Rise of the Third Power is a retro return to Super Nintendo era RPGs with modern mechanics that make for a great package. The game sees you playing a group of thugs who kidnap a princess to prevent her wedding. The story, of course, then evolves to explain more and more of the world around you and the reasons behind this action and what those consequences are. The story is the main focus here, and it's very well written and relatively easy to follow. The combat, however, is where I easily had the most fun. All the characters weave together their abilities to allow for amazing combo attacks. No one character can just kill everything on their own, and it requires teamwork in order to set up each other for big hits or debilitating CC effects. The team behind this game also kept the complexity light by implementing skill trees and other RPG mechanics to sink your teeth into, but none of them are too complicated or even that large that it takes away from the main game, avoiding being a menu-clicking simulator. Between the great story, complex combat, and the great retro style, Rise of the Third Power is a feast for any RPG fan. Riviera: The Promised Land is actually a re-release of a game that came out on the Game Boy Advance back in 2005. Sadly, because the DS was right on the heels of its release, this game kind of just released into a maelstrom of DS news and excitement, getting lost in the storm. You play as Ein and Lita, who are given the task by the great Magi Hector to basically destroy the world below, Riviera, because demons are starting to take over and it's better to prevent the spread than allow it to take over more. Through some story-based conveniences, Ein ends up on Riviera not knowing what's going on, and the story then begins. It's as basic a return to form story, and honestly, it won't win any awards for the writing, but all the characters are so great that it doesn't even matter, and the game's short length means that it wraps up quickly and doesn't drag out. What shines to me, as you'll notice as a trend so far in this video, is of course the combat. It's got some oddities to it that you don't see often in other games. You start the battle, you choose a few characters to go in, give them a setup to use, and go. Battles play out with you choosing attacks, and overdrive meters start to fill, and then you, of course, dominate. At least, that's the hope. The combat is more strategic than you'll initially assume based on first sight, but trust me, it's a very fun system to engage in. Overall, this package is a great blast to the past of the GBA's last days, and if you want a good callback, Riviera: The Promised Land will definitely give you that.
You did that for my sake?
As an angel of Asgard, I will defeat you.
Your soul shall be mine.
This is the god's reasoning for Riviera.
If you like Fire Emblem, especially the Game Boy Advance ports we received back in the 2000s, Dark Deity is going to scratch an itch you've missed since Fire Emblem went to full 3D models. The game sees you playing out on a military academy just like the much beloved Three Houses game, and just like Three Houses, character relationships are a top priority here. There are over 25 playable characters to flesh out your army, and each has a unique personality, so you are sure to find someone to latch onto as a favorite. The artwork is very well done, it has a nice cartoon anime style to the drawing, and the battle sequence look great, if you like that Game Boy Advance polished look to your games. The initial look might turn some people off, because that's just how retro grabs its audiences these days. The combat can be deep and requires strategies ranging from all-out brute force to kiting and strategic placement, playing with ranges to avoid getting hit. Now, note there is no permadeath here, which may let some of you down who are looking for that true alternative to an Emblem series, but death isn't nothing either. Although they don't die, they will lose a stat point permanently, which over time, if you let them die more and more, will definitely hurt their performance, and it means keeping them alive is necessary to some extent. But you don't have to necessarily restart an entire battle if one person goes down like you do in the Emblem series if you're going for no death runs. It's not the prettiest game on the Switch, of course, but if you want that nostalgia Sacred Stone vibe, this is one to get. As I said earlier with Morero Crystal H, I had another dungeon crawling RPG on this list that I felt you should look into if the hyper-centralized nature of Morero wasn't for you, and that would be Mary Skelter Finale. The game is the third in the series, and as the name implies, it is the finale. Do you need to play the previous games? No. And not just because not necessarily the story is intertwined, but also because Finality includes a visual novel, although a very lengthy one mind you, to catch you up. But I would be lying if I didn't tell you that the previous games were also great, and you should give them a try. Unlike many others in this genre, you don't just control one party, you control 3 parties of 6, and all 3 are exploring the same dungeon at the same time. It's up to you to swap between each team as you go through to see different parts of the dungeon, flip switches for other teams to progress farther, etc. And it is, of course, with the inevitable goal of reaching the end. One of my favorite aspects of this game is how the characters are based on popular fantasy characters like Alice in Wonderland, Cinderella, etc. It's a neat twist on the characters you've come to know in their original world versions, and it's something that they definitely would not survive in if that original version was put into this world. The game is also what I would call an unintentional roguelike. The reason is because if you push too far without proper supplies, your own allies will eventually go into some blood-crazed mode where they themselves will just obliterate your own team. So you can only go so far each time before you need to regroup, resupply, and continue. Now, the job system is deep and the cast is huge, which means there's a lot to dig your teeth into in this game, and I do think it's one of the better in the genre, and it's one that a lot of people don't talk about. Most consider Etrian Odyssey and games like that to be peak, but I would argue this game is a lot more fun than that. The biggest downside of the game, though, just to be honest, is that because of the length of the dungeons is repetition, but the themes, art style, and the vibe all make this a great excursion into the dungeon crawling RPG world. Diofield Chronicle is a game that deserves a bit more love than I feel it got during its initial release. Many poked at the simplicity of the systems and the controls on the Switch, which is fair, but if you take a look back at the game with a lens of a game trying to do something different with the tactical RPG genre, I would argue it's a phenomenal take. The story sees a rising empire, a big bad, and a nation in rebellion. It's a pretty standard story that we've all seen time and time again, but based on how the combat plays out, it actually fits very well. The characters are well animated and drawn, and each one is uniquely played out, if not just short of being fleshed out to the extent of something like Fire Emblem Three Houses. But where this game truly shines is, once again, the combat. This game is basically if you took Fire Emblem, and instead of a turn-based grid system, it's a real-time unit management system that requires you to move your units around the battlefield and ensure that each unit engages with an enemy that they are strategically advantageous against. You'll sling spells and abilities at a distance in a very visually appealing style while your melee units protect their backline and move in for the kill. It's a visual treat, and when you see a battle play out in real time exactly how you strategize it in your head, it is extremely satisfying. The gear system and such isn't too complex, allowing the combat scenarios to shine above all else, and honestly, that's what I needed from this game. Diofield Chronicle is a true hidden gem with a unique take on tactical RPGs that any fan should at least try.
My area.
How did you come to be so well versed in ancient sorcery?
Enough of this! We must be united against the Empire.
Is it not obvious? We must bring the traitor to justice.
So what will he believe in?
Last up, let's talk about Monarch. If you like Shin Megami Tensei, Persona, etc., the Atlas RPGs, and you haven't tried Monarch, I'd say you're missing out. Monarch was created by some ex-Shin Megami Tensei Atlas developers, and you can see the influence all over the place. From the dark story to the creepy enemies, the vibes all around, it fits perfectly. As with the previously mentioned Atlas titles, in Monarch you play a high schooler whose high school is under attack, and you must help rid the school of this evil and return the world to normal. One of the best parts of the game is how you explore the area in a very unnerving and puzzly way, and you have to utilize your wit to prevent loss and look for all the lore pieces, info dumps, and all the information that you need to progress the story forward. Combat is tactical grid-based and it flows relatively well, the only real issue being variety, but the game isn't overly long that it honestly didn't bother me at all. What is fun is that the characters utilize different variations of the deadly sins to level up their skills and have unique styles, such as focusing on debuffs to deal more damage per debuff inflicted. The music is, as you would expect, pretty bangin', and overall this package is one that I feel many overlooked because they considered it the Temu or Wish Shin Megami Tensei, and I feel that that's unfair. If you like Shin Megami Tensei and you want to give a game a try that isn't necessarily as deep but just as much fun, give Monarch a play. Well, there you go. 10 out of 10 hidden gem RPGs that any RPG fan should try. In truth, no game is perfect, but these games all hit a spot for me that I hope you can experience too. Now, what hidden gems in the RPG genre have you played that you love and swear by regardless of what the mainstream reviews say? Leave a comment down below and let us all know so that way we can give them a try. Now, drop a like and sub if you want to see more, and until next time, have a great day.